Good morning, everyone. Appreciate you being here with me this morning on the Nadex morning market breakdown. Maybe we can lay a beat down on the breakdown. With a huge news week, huge news week this week. If you haven't looked at the news, you need to do that every day, or at least every week at the beginning of the week. Definitely get in tune with that. Excuse me, we'll do that here in just a moment. And let's, yeah, good morning, everyone. Glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. Let's get started here. We do have some selling this morning in the stock indices. We will look at one of those this morning here as we get rolling. But as always, we got to talk about financial risk and trading, whether it be Nadex or anything else. You always have financial risks, so be aware of that. Do not trade with monies you cannot afford to lose. Trading can be volatile. All right, so just don't use the rent money, the food money, kids' college education money, none of that stuff. All right, of course, that's me. Been doing this for a long time. And yeah, that's me. All right, so let's go take a look here this morning at our news events. And let's do that. So let me pause this. We'll switch over to the browser here. All right, so you can use, I like to use Forex Factory's calendar, the calendar as you see right there. There's also, of course, my FX book calendar. That's very good as well. So it's to each his own, but whatever site you use one that's going to give you the news. And so what I like to do, of course, I mention this every week, is just come up here and when I'm on this page and filter this, because I want to pay attention to these high impact events. You see over here on the left side of your screen, we have these folders. So this is what I like to pay attention to here. I'm not so interested in the lower or medium impact or even the non-economic events. They just tend not to do much to the markets or for the markets. So what I do is I come up here and I click right here, this little filter, and I just uncheck these three boxes. All right, and I just leave that one and I hit apply. And this is what I get. So let's see here. So today, of course, we had these events right here. Let's see if I can highlight them a bit. So this is Tuesday. So you can see there's a lot of news out of, or a couple of news reports, excuse me, out of Australia later this evening. New Zealand as well. So there'll be some activity in the Aussie dollar, would be something to be aware of. We have this report coming out here a little less than an hour here in the US. That's a pretty good one. And then sometime today, and it could be going on right now, I've not double checked it, but we have the Bank of Japan press conference. Tomorrow, here we go, right here in the US of A, we have FOMC statement, Fed funds rate, FOMC press conference. So going to be a market mover, currency mover. Also know earlier in the day, there's this out of the US and then this out of Canada. So a very heavy news day. Be aware of that, especially later in the day. By the way, all times listed on the calendar here default to Eastern time. So that is Wednesday, big day there. And then we have, of course, Thursday, and you can look at all the news out of Great Britain in the morning. 7 a.m. Eastern time. Look at that. There are 4 events scheduled right there. And then half hour later, we have this one for Governor Carney speaking. And then we have out of the US some more. And then on Friday, another big news day for the US of A and Canada. Not so much Canada, they only have the one report coming out, but we have the non-farm payroll, which is a biggie. Typically the first Friday of every month. You got to be aware of that. Again, big market movers. For some of you that aren't as experienced as others, you may want to just sit the week out just because of that, the news events, or unless you have a way to be able to trade the volatility, because it will be volatile. Any questions on that before I move on? All right, I guess no, no questions. All right, so again, these are the two calendars I tend to pay attention to, Forex Factory and my FX book. All right, so let's take a look at some markets here today. Because I know you don't really care about the news, you just care about the markets, right? But the news affects the markets. All right, we're gonna look at the NASDAQ. I'd start out today, currently down 0.82%. On Nadex, of course, this is the US Tech 100. US Tech 100. We're gonna start out here today with the daily chart. I'm gonna, let's see here. I got a weekly chart. Let's go to the daily. We'll blow this up here. So, well, you can see here on the weekly chart, we have some different resistance levels. See how the market just kind of tapped this level up here for a couple, 3 weeks in a row, right in the ballpark, not exact, but right there. And momentum has been pretty steady through here as well. Pretty steady. We do have the oscillator here that is trying to hook over to the downside at the moment. All right, so let's go down to the daily and take a look at that. All right, so a little bit more clarity. You can see there was this day here that was the 24th of July, popped through that level and actually closed above it, and then we had the pullback here, and then today we are right down at the bottom of this level. We'll see a little more clarity here in just a moment, but you can see how momentum now off the daily is flipping negative here as the oscillator here is rolling over. All right, so now let's go down to we're going to jump here to the 4-hour or 243-minute chart on my workspace. And I have these areas color coded here. You can see the resistance zone, how many times, the area has been attacked and defeated. Well, not really so much defeated, right? Because you see all the wicks that have popped through, and then the market settles back inside the zone. It looks like the only day was right here, again, on the 29th, that the market just kind of closed highest through all of this zone. Well, also through this area, let's see, it's not going to be pretty, but we had kind of a double top. I'm going to ignore this spike here, almost a triple top here, didn't we? Or head and shoulder pattern. And the market breaks down and then moves up and then back down again. Now we're at a point where the market is through moving average support. So the support here is the blue lines, the 50 SMA simple moving average, and the red 89 SMA simple moving average, right down to this zone. You can see this green zone, that is a support zone that the market is in at the moment here. Or I'm sorry, just touching and just sitting above here at the moment. But look at the loss. My momentum indicator clearly showing a big decline in momentum here off of this time frame. And now what I see here is, because I have this had this program so that when momentum starts to weaken, to be on alert. When you see it kind of change color here and go from a darker red to a lighter colored red, that means momentum is weakening a bit, which isn't a surprise coming into this support zone, right? I'm a believer, I prefer to buy support and sell resistance. And so if that's the case, we could see a bounce here, but we don't have enough information quite yet. So let's keep working our way down. So again, I have workspaces here in which I have multiple time frames, and in other words, I do multiple time frame analysis. This is a 4-hour. I always like to start high and work my way down. So my charts are set up in the respect that they are in intervals of 3 or multiples of 3. So from 243 divided by 3 takes me down to 81 minutes. And just get to a little bit different look under the hood, if you will. And you can see here's that topping pattern that formed right here. And now we came right down here where the market did to this support level. You can see how many times this has been hit through here. Multiple times. Momentum is pretty strong to the downside, but we're in an area here now where we could bounce and cycle back up. So we have this resistance level right through here too, as that orange line that I've marked there. So that is, let's see where that is here at the moment. It's 79.64-ish, 79.64, and the market's currently trading 79.41. So we're about 25 points or so from that level. Let's see a question from, let's see here. Referring to the news, does it mean that the Aussie dollar, US dollar, Canadian dollar are good to trade in today? As long as, there's no upcoming events. Here's the thing. When I look at news, it doesn't mean I won't necessarily trade that day going into the news, but I want to have a position that I've been in for a while, at least been able to take off some profits, ideally. But I'm not going to place a trade, say 45 minutes before the news, a directional trade, nor will I, take a trade for a good 45 minutes to an hour after the news if I'm trading off these smaller time frames. Daily charts don't have much of an impact per se for me in that regard, but trading off of smaller time frames, I'm going to trade around the news or avoid the news in that regard. All right, so let's come down here to the 27-minute chart, and again, you can see it almost an exact hit, just shy here. It looks like of a couple of points, but we have a cycle study bottoming out. So what I'm seeing here, the story that I'm being told at the moment is the market has come into a support zone, and it still can push a little bit deeper because we have some good momentum here to the downside. But being at a support zone, we're starting to see the cycle studies hook back to the upside, which tells me that we could see a bounce in here. So again, keeping that green area that I have marked off in mind here, let's go down to the 9-minute. So here I start to see a little bit more. I'm going to show you that whole green zone here. So you can see that runs here from about 79.26 down to 79.08. So what's that, about 18 points or so that the market could drift into this area. But we also have an area here that is starting to form a bottom pattern. So my trading again is based around support and resistance, chart patterns, momentum, and cycles. Just combine that all together. So here on this time frame, the 9-minute chart, I see a left shoulder and a head and shoulder bottom pattern in place. That is a reversal pattern of a downtrend. So in other words, I'd look for the right shoulder to form and then the market do something like that. What's the likelihood that the market does that if it makes a right shoulder? Well, we have resistance here and here. So this is kind of the zone I would look for the market to move into between those arrows. That looks like about a 10-point zone the market could move into. And even, in fact, if I do that a little, let's do that a little better here. Let's draw that coming over here, and we'll take into account the wick right here. So you can see how that comes into play. We're pretty close to where I had those arrows. So what I need to see now for a possible trade to the upside here is I want to see the market, do something like this and maybe come back down and then form another pivot, and then that would be the right shoulder. And then I would look to get long if we have momentum that is up in here, 0 or above, and ideally have this study be down in here hooking up as well. Something like that. Does that make sense? Now that's to get long. All right, so at the moment, we're pretty far into this downtrend, and here's what I'm talking about. You can see how the market drifted sideways up here on this time frame. This blue line against the 50-period moving average, price broke down, and then we had a slight retrace right here. So there's one retrace, let's see, here's the second retrace right here, and the best with the trend trades are going to come in the first 2 retraces, and so we're into 3, so 1, 2, 3, and now here this could be a possible 4th retrace right here. So I'm not really looking to go short here at this point. I need a bigger bounce, I guess is probably the best way to say that. And I have no problem playing a move up into this area right here if we get the setup for that bounce, and then perhaps we can look to go. I would look to sell some binaries or spreads or something later in the day if that occurs. All right, so that's kind of the story there. We are, gosh, already 6:15 my time, so let's move on here. We're going to look at gold now. Gold has been all over here this morning. What are your best and worst indicators for shorter time frames? Well, I try not to use the worst indicators. I have indicators that I've designed, and they are on these charts. But you could use, if you're using the Nadex charts, for example, you could use a momentum indicator, and something like maybe the stochastic, the CCI, something like that, that could give you some read on some cycles. But that's what I use. I don't, what you see on my charts is what I use. So I have some moving averages that I use for support and resistance levels. I have a momentum indicator and I have a cycle indicator. And so you'll note my charts are the same on all time frames. I don't change them to look at a different time frame. So I'm using, again, a combination of support and resistance levels, chart patterns, momentum, and cycles. All right, so here's gold. Let's start at we'll start here at the 4 hour since we're kind of running out of time here this morning already. But this is the 4 hour chart, or 243 minutes to be exact, for gold. And it tacked this resistance zone back on, looks like the high was on the 18th of July, and then moved down and really just kind of drifted sideways here. In fact, if you can see, the moving averages are all right here. Look how long they've been moving sideways. We could even probably bring that way back here. That is a market of indecisiveness. And we come back here to the 22nd. So we're, what, 7 or 8 days into a sideways market here. So currently, price is attacking the top of this zone that I just drew there. In fact, I think I'm going to draw that out actually on the chart. We're going to come way back here, just kind of do it like so. So there, you can see that channel that price is in at the moment. Let's change it to a funky color. There we go. All right, so if it gets out of this zone, you see this wick here. Wicks are likely to get filled, and that could push price up here. Let's see, that's going to be right around the 1447 level, if that's the case. Another $6 or so. Momentum's pretty strong. Got the blue wave intact here, just pushing higher now. Cycle study still pushing higher as well. So let's go down to the 81 minute. A different viewpoint here. I can see within this channel that price has been in, you can see we're at the top of the channel, and we have a possible left shoulder and possible head here. But we have momentum still moving up, cycle study still moving up as well. Not as conclusive as the 243 minute chart, but we still see that we have some energies to the upside here. All right, but overall, so we're in a channel at the top of the channel with momentum or energy to the upside here. Let me show you one other thing here. This is an important area where the market is located at the moment. Look at this. We have over here, let's do it like this. So we're over here. This is in the zone. This is in the zone. Same all through here. Right, so that's an important area there for the market at the moment. 1443.20-ish, right in that ballpark. So just as with the NASDAQ, we saw the NASDAQ pushing into support here, just the opposite. We see December, by the way, this is December contract. Nadex has switched over to the December contract. So roll out from August to the Christmas contract here. But here we see the market moving into resistance, just the opposite, right? All right, so let's go down to the 27 minute. So on Nadex, you could use a 4 hour, a 1 hour, a 30-minute chart, things like that. You won't be exactly the 3 minute, I'm sorry, intervals or multiples of 3, but you see a little bit of a push here now back to test this high. What I want to do is come back here, and I'm going to sync these levels onto the other charts so you can see what I was focusing on a little better. So here we are. You can see the market is, we still have a positive energy, so we still could see a higher push if the market wants to get out of this. If you recall, I talked about wicks, and here's some wicks right here on this half-hour chart, right through there. Let's just change the color here. I like to kind of make my charts look like a clown's face. Lots of funky colors. All right, so again, coming down to the 9-minute here, again, you can see we're at the top of that range. One more thing here. I did not do over here. Let's put this on the other charts. There we go. There's that orange zone right there. So even inside of this upper circle or ellipse that I drew, which could be a head on that higher time frame chart, we have the potential for another pattern. We have kind of a shoulder here, a head here, and this could be a shoulder potentially right here. It's not set up quite yet. I like to see my momentum indicator shift to the downside. It's basically at 0 right now. And I want to see this hook over, telling me that a cycle high has been confirmed and starting to move down to capture any sort of movement to the downside at the moment. But right now on the other time frames, we have energy to the upside. So I'm not looking to trade this to the downside, right? Because we have that and this as well. So let's go down here to the 3-minute. So there's that same head and shoulders that we outlined on that 81-minute chart, just the grouping of candles, and you can see how things look a little bit different. You get a little bit more detail. So there's another support zone right here, these highs. See how that comes into play where price is currently trading above it. All right, so what I want to see here with gold is a breakout out of this purple zone, that channel that I highlighted. And then it probably, at that point, I will look for a retest. And this is what I'm talking about, if I can draw this for you here. So we'll look for a breakout, and then let's say it does something like this, retest, comes back to that level, and then maybe it even comes into it and then bounces. So I would watch for this to help me time my entry, something like so, and watch for this to maybe do something like this as well. And that's where I would look to possibly get long this market. Profitable clown face, that's right. All right, so that is gold. Any questions there before I move on? I think I've answered the questions that have been asked. Bogdan and Devise. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. All right, so right now you can see how the market's struggling through. Look at all these wicks. That's a lot of indecisiveness here. Go back to the NASDAQ very quickly, and then we'll finish up today by looking at crude oil. So you can see, in fact, if I put these onto the other charts, there we go. So we have the head and shoulder, or at least the left shoulder and head, kind of still intact here. All right, so let's look at crude oil. Looking at September crude oil. Okay, so I have some zones already marked off on here as well. I use the, Timothy wants to know, do you use the front month chart or which one? I'm using the charts that correspond to the Nadex market. So if Nadex is used, like Nadex just switched out from the August gold contract to the December. So using the December. Because I can't trade, simply can't trade the August one any longer if I wanted to. And that's going to go away here in a day or so anyway. So I just match my symbols up. And whenever you log into your Nadex account, it'll tell you when they're switching ticker symbols, switching contracts. Yeah, you bet. All right, so this is September crude. Let's look at the daily chart first. All right, so the big picture here. We had the market, let's see here. The market go from a high to a higher high and then a big sell-off. Stopped right here. Look at this, how this kind of lines up way back here. It's right there in that ballpark. And then bounces and it's just kind of been going nowhere since. We could even say that This is more or less, a kind of a triangle pattern that's formed here off of this move down. So almost a bear flag, which is typically a bearish chart pattern. We have momentum that is pretty much flattened out here. You can see it's slightly negative. This oscillation is moving up, so we're seeing some energy to the upside, but not a lot, and that's why you see the stall here. You can also note here that if we just go off a read of price, we really have right through here. Look at how many times this area has been touched. In fact, I could probably extend that back to here. Let's see. Something like that, it looks like. Yeah, so that's a key level. That comes in 57.40-ish, right in that ballpark. So we see how the market pushed up out of the green zone, touched this kind of purple center zone between the two support resistance levels. Not much momentum happening at the moment. Let's go down here to the, we're going to jump down to the 243-minute chart. A little bit different view. And you can see how, again, here, markets attacked this level here recently since the middle of the month. 1, 2, 3, 4 times now. And it's been rejected every time. So like a quadruple top here through this range. Now I say range because it's important, I think, to remember the market is in this channel. So if a market's in a channel, I prefer to trade breakout retests rather than trade breakouts, or even better, if I can get an opportunity where if I thought the market, based on my read of all the in context of the energies, let's say the market comes down here and then I could look to possibly get long, that would be where I'd look to buy. I don't like to buy the breakouts. A lot of people will trade those breakouts. I used to do that years ago. I like to see the retest and bounce. Sometimes I miss it because it doesn't retest. I'm okay with that. Just my style. All right, so at resistance, momentum is still is actually to the upside, but possible cycle high here. Price projections. Yeah, so I'm not going to, Michael, since you're a regular student of mine, I would encourage you to ask me that again tomorrow. How's that? Because that'll throw everybody off here. Oh, no worries. No worries. No worries. I don't have the time, unfortunately, to get too much into all that. But we are at this resistance area, so let's go down here to the 81-minute. And here's a little, maybe another look here, how important this level is. So look at the loss of momentum on this time frame. So this is how I look at these different time frames. If you're still kind of wondering what the heck's he doing, think of it this way. Let's say the biggest time frame is a wheel, and the wheel is this big. All right, so the next lower time frame, that wheel might be this big, and on and on and on, this way down the line, right? So if you look at this wheel on the far left, it can make a lot of rotations in the time this makes one, right? Maybe it can make 50 rotations or cycles in the time this big one makes one. And that's the idea here. By working our way from the top down, we can trade these cycles on these smaller time frames many times. And sometimes that means if this big wheel is a 4-hour chart, maybe on the weekly chart or the daily chart, maybe the daily chart's this wheel and the weekly chart's this one. Maybe what if I got a setup, say, right here off of this daily chart, and I went down to, my, I don't know, my 81-minute chart and traded it from there because I got a better entry, lowered my risk. And that's kind of the idea. All right, so 81 coming off of that. Let's go down here quickly, see if we can see any patterns shaping up out of this resistance. So it's a tough, it's a tough read here. We kind of had left shoulder, head, and a little bit of a right shoulder right here. Let's see here. All right, so this is actually a good example of what we have negative momentum, and we had the oscillator, cycle study, hook over. So let's see how that kind of lines up on price. So the peak, so this candle here, yeah, so that just below that candle would have been an entry to the downside here. Now, obviously, I started here this morning with the Nasdaq about a half hour ago, so unfortunately, we missed this. But that would have been something to trade. Now, I would not take this trade at this point, right? Because it's already broken down some, and now it's coming into a support level. See that? And it's trying to bounce a bit here. And also at this point now, and this is why I don't chase markets, is now we're at a point where there's possible cycle low being put in right there. Where it could bounce. So again, small cycle trades, sometimes you'll be able to capture big moves off of these cycles, and other times you're just capturing small moves. All right, so as far as going forward here for crude oil, let's just take a quick look here again. So we have momentum sideways on the 4-hour chart. We're losing momentum on the 81-minute. It is negative on the 27, negative on the 9. It is still bearish here on the 3-minute. It's down. Cycle study down, down, down. So to me, the basis of the movement here in the market is to the downside going forward here for the time being. I don't want to short here, though. I want to see the market retrace. Right? Don't sell lows or buy highs. So just kind of wrap things up this morning. If I come down here to the 3-minute as an example. All right, so we can draw a couple of trend lines. So I'm going to go off the wicks here. Ideally, if the market could retrace into that area there, where we also have the couple of different moving averages sitting right there. Show you a little something here. Wave projection. Let's see how this wave worked out. So here to here. So I measured from the high to that pivot low. Just drew a trend line, and then we'll put it on that retrace. Look at that. That hit that, didn't it? It wasn't exactly in time, but it was in price. So 1-to-1s, we'll often see reversals. The other thing is let's see how far this Fibonacci move was. So that was a 50% retrace. See that for that right shoulder? That was a big move, a good move. You could have got short there. So what I'm talking about, when you see these types of setups, this is where you can look to sell binaries above resistance, for example, up here, above this resistance level with strikes up in here. That is one way you can do it, just as an example. Let's do this one. Looks like we're right here. So far the market retraced 38.2% of this last leg down here. Man, you can see how the energy is starting to shift a bit. So with the Nasdaq, let's go back there real quick this morning. And so I'm watching crude oil. We're still watching gold, as I described earlier. If I can, my charts don't freeze up here. Here we go. So now with the stock market just opened up here about 4 minutes ago here in the States, we have a potential right shoulder trying to shape here. And that would be right here. This is hooking up. We have positive momentum. And again, remember I talked about at the outset into this blue zone. So that would be something to contemplate there. See if I can sync that. There, you can see how the market actually touched it already, didn't it? Hasn't exceeded it quite yet, but it's touched into it. All right, so there you go. That's going to do it for today. I don't expect myself personally to do a lot of trading this week, just simply because of the news. I do have strategies for volatility type of trades, non-directional trades, but if I do, I may implement something like that. But otherwise, I may just sit tight here this week. Big news week, as I mentioned. You can see the market pushing up now into that zone, right? Or towards that zone, excuse me. All right, well, hopefully you found a nugget or two out of the analysis here today. Sometimes just because you analyze a market, well, here, let me phrase it this way. I look for reasons to stay out of the market, which most folks, I think, tend to look for reasons to stay in the market or get in the market. So if the market can't tell me that I need to stay out, then I'll look to get in based on my analysis. All right, so I'm going to wrap her up here today. hopefully you learned a thing or two. And you know, when the volatility happens, which we're seeing volatility in several of these markets. Remember though, it's also summertime and there are fewer players involved during the summer. And doesn't mean we can't get the volatility, but many times those moves are almost like head fakes because of the lack of participants. Big funds leave the markets, that sort of thing, especially coming in here into August. So be aware of that. All right, everybody. Have a great day, everyone. Yeah, thanks. It was yeah, Ellen. Nice to meet you as well. Take care, everyone. Yeah, now you can see we're right into that zone, right? Just as we talked about. Remember, I highlighted that, what, a half hour ago, that was a probability zone, right, that we could move into. And boom, right to the top of it. Is it going to exceed it? Well, let's take a quick look before we blow out of here today. Look at this. Boom, boom. Negative, but going positive. Same here. Just turning up, flat, flat. So yeah, right now at the moment, energies are pushing up. So there you go. So you had the head and shoulder pattern. We talked about that just a few minutes ago. There you go, everybody. Have a good day. I'm Jim Prince. God bless. We'll see you again next time. Take care, everyone.